Like, man, I knew exactly, I thought the gun I wanted. I walk up to the big gun counter and there's this big, overweight, big bearded guy just staring at me. Didn't even say hello. Finally, I'm like, well, excuse me, sir, could I look at that gun right there? And he looks at me and goes, what would a guy like you want with a gun like that? Wow.
Just 20 years ago, United States Concealed Carry Association was born. And since then, their membership has grown to nearly 700,000 and counting. Life-saving education, industry-leading training, and self-defense liability insurance are the three focal points of the United States Concealed Carry Association. But what is USCCA, and who are the people behind it? This summer, Go Films was invited to find out who they are and how they're helping everyday Americans. Just outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin is the headquarters of Delta Defense and USCCA. For 20 years, it has grown and developed into a premier company for training and legal support for everyday Americans who choose to carry a firearm.
So USCCA membership is so much more than insurance. It's really, I call it three pillars. It's the pillar of education, training, and then self-defense liability insurance. Education is all about preparation of the mind. The training is all about preparation of the body. And then the self-defense liability insurance is really kind of an afterthought that, in case you're in that horrible situation, you will have legal preparation as well.
I'm going to interrupt my boss right here for just a minute, really quickly. This is Kevin from the USCCA, and if you're interested in the USCCA or want to learn more, click the link in the description, because right now we have some free bonuses you get instantly when you join the USCCA.
One thing that brought companies like the USCCA to the forefront for me is a particular situation where an individual tried to murder my wife and kids.
Wow.
All right. So in that situation, even though I had some law enforcement experience, when I actually had to have, a firearm on this guy, give him commands, protect my family, I thought about something. What would have happened if this situation didn't play out the way it did? And I didn't have to use force that day. But what would have happened if this went different?
Right.
The same family I'm trying to protect could be the same family that I'm taking away from and put into a cage myself. If I don't have the right people out there that are willing to go to bat for me, right?
Yeah.
That have the resources, the knowledge, the skill. And so that's when I really started letting the wheels churn. And shortly thereafter, I realized the importance of the USCCA, and I joined right up.
As more Americans purchase firearms, they're turning to the USCCA for their education, training, and self-defense liability insurance. The USCCA helps responsible Americans prepare for what happens before, during, and after an act of lawful self-defense.
So the call center. So the call center is a group of around, 150 people from all across the country, and it's actually 24/7. So if you have a problem or have a question or a concern, you can call into our 24/7, 365 call center, and someone's going to be there to answer the phone call for you. And it's really a group of people from really all across the country. We're talking California, we're talking some people out in New Hampshire, all over the country, really just answering those questions for you to really help you on your concealed carry journey.
Admittedly, I knew very little about USCCA before coming here. So when they invited me, I'm like, okay, great. We all got to be learning, right? We've got to be progressing and learning on the individual level for the community to, advance as well. So I was like, heck yeah, canceled some things. Let's go up there and check this out. I've heard about it. I want to know more.
Yeah.
And within only a couple of hours of being here and listening to the classes and, their entire, their goals, just the vibe in the building. They are trying really hard to do good things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, all right, I want to know more.
Yeah.
And now my question is, how can I help?
Right. How can you add
that's
some value to it?
Sold.
Yeah.
It's important, to get American gun owners, folks who value realize that they are their own self-defense, right? Police can't be here but so much amount of time, and that you're responsible, and you have to be responsible for your own safety, and then responsible for that gun ownership.
A lot of people don't have enough situational awareness when it comes to training for like force on force and things like that. people's emotions get the best of them sometimes, and that's where they screw up. And if you don't have that education and training, if you don't have that practice put in with, what actually do I really need to know? I mean, is the knowledge I have enough? I haven't met a person whose knowledge that they have is actually enough. You know what I mean? And I've talked to every level of individual in my career here.
One thing that's definitely stood out to me, that USCCA is very, very focused on making sure that they're getting it right. I love the fact that they're, open arms, open ears, and they're asking, no, we need your feedback.
Right.
Because we got to get this right. We got millions of people that are depending on us. And honestly, for a lot of the people out there that just purchased a new firearm in the past couple of years, they don't know where to start.
Right.
USCCA is the place to start. They're bringing in subject matter experts like myself to make sure the curricula is correct.
Right,
and
right.
it's going to reach like the regular person.
Right,
who
right.
just wants to, they just want to keep their family safe. I want to be able to go throughout the world and feel safe.
Last year we worked with a woman, her name is Kendra Geronimo. She was a sex trafficking survivor, and listening to her story of how she went through that experience has turned it to wanting to teach others about self-defense and how you're your own protector, and how she became her own protector and her family's protector was such a huge impact for me of, this is why we do it, is because we are giving the education and training to not have this happen to anyone else.
And hopefully learning something, right? What your competency is.
We always think mass shooters, we think schools.
Right, that's right.
50% are in businesses.
Wow, I didn't even know that, Johnny B.
I learned that, and 50% are in businesses. And so just thinking through our own day, you go into a business, you go into Target and Walmart, you go into Sam's or Costco, crap happens.
Are you aware of what's
Are you aware? And that little tool that you have at your house, still in the box, it's not going to help you back at the house.
At home, no, it's not.
No, and I think the USCCA is really filling the gap, bridging that gap between guy, gal, with that gun under the bed or on the top of the kitchen counter, on top of the fridge, and the day-to-day, everyday stuff like we're in a facility right now, and just being ready.
The training that's offered from the training division begins with concealed carry and home defense fundamentals. So it's a course that can be taught in 6 hours or extended to 14 to 16 hours. We want to meet people that are new to gun ownership, but we offer training that helps not just the new gun owners, but anybody that's a gun owner. So in other words, people that are my age, for instance, you spend time in the military, law enforcement officers, hunters, anybody that has had experience with firearms can still benefit and do find extreme benefits by taking our defensive shooting fundamentals course, for instance. Those that go into the rifles, we have an AR-15 fundamentals course too. And those courses help people to understand the idea of defensive shooting.
We are currently recognized 100%, both curriculum and our trainers, in 39 states. There are 4 states, I believe, that are county by county, so the USCCA curriculum and trainers are recognized county by county, like California, for instance. What we're doing is just going into states, talking to decision makers, lawmakers. It might be Sheriff's Department, it might be the state DOJ, and working to get our curriculum approved. We just had success the last state legislative cycle in North Carolina. We actually just had our curriculum and our trainers approved a couple months ago. Like I mentioned, Virginia is our next target, so we're actively working with folks on the ground there to get both our curriculum approval as well as our trainers approved there to teach all the programming that we have.
A young lady came to me a few months ago, and she had been followed in a parking garage on a college campus in East Tennessee. And she came to me, she said, I feel unsafe, what do I do? I'm like, well, have you ever thought about protecting yourself? And she said, yeah, I'd like a gun, I've never touched a gun.
The critical response team is here for support. There's any variety of things that somebody goes through in the aftermath of a self-defense incident, and what we do in the critical response team is support all of those needs. In certain cases, they at first just need somebody to talk to help calm them down. Your body goes through a ton of chemical reactions and things like that, and you need somebody to help you start to articulate what's going on. Sometimes there's immediate intervention that's needed by an attorney and things like that. So when it comes to the importance of it, you think of somebody that's really involved in what might be the worst situation in their life. We're providing that initial layer of support to that person. Most people that call, the first thing they need is not an attorney. And that is my job, is to determine what is actually needed. So we're doing triage on every single call. That's the big deal. It's that actual personal human touch of somebody who actually cares to get you what you need right now. That's what's important. Because if you call an attorney, you don't need to talk to an attorney, why are you wasting your time talking to that attorney? When somebody calls the critical response team, it's a one-way conversation. It's a one-way like phone conversation. There's no recordings of actual critical calls, things like that. Even non-critical calls, there's no recordings of those either. This is a very, very candid conversation with an individual, again, who is experienced with what you're going through. And really, your confidentiality is important. And I think that's the big deal. There's always somebody talking about, oh, this is recorded. No, not at all. We would never, ever want to compromise the integrity of a USCCA member.
I talked to a guy, Daryl, one time about a year ago on the phone, and he was calling about renewing his membership, and I answered the phone call, and he was talking to me about the membership, and he was really kind of figuring out, okay, so where do I fit in this demographic or this group of people? I'm like, you're family, man, you're a member. That's what it's all about. He's like, oh, that's awesome. I don't really expect that. I'm like, of course, that's what the USCCA membership. It's a huge group of like-minded people that really help people grow on their journey. And he was super thrilled to hear that. I think he was down in Atlanta, and I believe there's another range that he connected with that was an official partner of ours. We got connected with them, and I believe he still goes and trains at that range to this day with our official partner that's down there.
The USCCA is an organization that is focused on not only equipping responsible gun owners, but they're also focused on intently building community among its members. The person responsible for pushing the USCCA to change American firearms culture for the better is founder and CEO Tim Schmidt.
And I also I was telling John this, how your dad spent time individually with each of you, which that I thought was so unique. You're a father now, you're a leader now of a company with hundreds of employees. How did those experiences with your dad shape what you've gone through, who you currently are, and probably who you're still becoming in some ways, right?
I'll admit it's tough to talk about my dad. He passed away from ALS in 2017.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, guys. And I mean, ALS is like a blessing and a curse. You don't survive that disease.
Yeah.
But you know, okay, I've got 3 more years with my dad. He was a tough father. He wasn't all lovey and oh, you're the smartest kid ever, Tim. Just the opposite. My dad helped me to learn how to lead with love and peace and patience. And I feel like I'm a work in progress as it relates to all of those, because no one's perfect, but I work hard to be a loving leader, if that doesn't sound too corny.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Once a year, he would take each of us 3
that
kids.
Story. Amazing to me. To share that story, Tim. That was amazing to me.
Well, so that was kind of the first time I ever experienced a firearm. I was 11 years old. Dad and I were camping up north Wisconsin, and I can remember sitting around the campfire. It was already dark, and all of a sudden you hear things walking around in the woods. I mean, of course, your imagination, it's probably just a little squirrel, but in your imagination, it's probably a lion or a tiger.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget how I felt when Dad, he perked up, heard the noise, walked in, went into the tent, came out with this 5-inch barrel Smith & Wesson nickel-plated .357 Magnum revolver. And he just laid it on his lap, and we just continued our conversation. And the feeling I felt was like, man, my dad can probably do anything, and I just felt a really powerful sense of protection. And then 2 days later, Dad let me shoot that gun, which was absolutely amazing.
What an incredible story, John.
Absolutely incredible. And then that segues right into our next question, and that is, so we've talked about the impact your dad had on your life, right? And then 20 years ago, you start USCCA, and in your book, you talked about how your child was the light of that inspiration. Help us understand that.
Really, the genesis of this whole business began in a hospital room, because I was a brand new dad. And being a 28-year-old man holding this brand new baby in my arms, looking down, thinking, dang, I'm responsible to protect this guy and provide for him. But here I was, a 28-year-old brand new father who had been shooting guns with his own father since I was 11. And at that time, I didn't even own a gun. And so I thought, man, Tim, you got to get your program together and figure this out. And so at the time, I was I went to school to be an engineer. So I did a deep dive into all this research on, okay, what gun should I buy? How do I carry it? All, blah, blah, blah. And honestly, guys, I ran into just a ton of roadblocks. I remember going to this gun shop down in Gander Mountain, walking into the store, and here's, this probably, at the time I was probably 30 years old. Like, man, I knew exactly, I thought the gun I wanted. I walk up to the big gun counter, and there's this big, overweight, big bearded guy just staring at me. Didn't even say hello. And he does one of these, looks me up and down. And finally, I'm like, well, excuse me, sir, could I look at that gun right there? And he looks at me and goes, what would a guy like you want with a gun like that?
Wow.
And
It's a bit
I'm thinking to myself, actually, sir, I need some help. I don't know. But that was just kind of the general feeling I got from really the whole industry. And so that was the beginning of probably the dumbest business idea, which was, I'll publish a print magazine in the early 2000s when the entire printing industry was going down.
Right.
And so that was the beginning of the USCCA, was just publishing concealed carry magazine.
Wow. Started with magazines.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
So in thinking about that turnaround, thinking about where we currently are, I mean, the country's changing. A lot of different people are becoming gun owners now.
Yeah.
A lot of different faces, a lot of faces that I don't think, maybe even in 2009, that we would imagine, holy smoke, look at this demo group and that demo group buying guns at numbers that we don't even have records on, right? And in the 80, 90 years that we've been recording this data. When you think about those groups, and their challenges, their concerns, or reasons are going to be very different from the traditional.
Sure.
I'm curious, and you just seem like such an open-minded leader, which is something I absolutely love about you. As you think about this new change, as you think about this new market, if you will, how are you thinking to approach it in the long run? Because you seem like a visionary in many ways.
I couldn't be more excited about the fact that literally millions, like 5 to 8 million brand new gun owners across America just in the last couple of years. We have to ask ourselves, well, why did that happen? Well, my thinking is that it's because when COVID hit, people started getting nervous, and then when all the riots in light of what happened in Minneapolis, people see this on the news, and so why buy a gun? Here's why: because they realize that, oh my goodness. It's up to me to be able to protect myself and my family.
First line of defense.
Yeah, and it's a responsibility issue. And so I love that. I love that because the more responsibly armed Americans we can have in the United States, the better, right? Because the only thing that criminals respond to is show of force, right? Because they're not stupid; they don't want to get hurt. And so if they're concerned,
isn't that funny, right? The irony in that,
it is. And my concern, or really my hope, is that all of these brand new gun owners understand that the action of purchasing a firearm is just the tip of the iceberg. Right. I mean, if you're going to carry a gun or have a gun in your house for self-defense, you need to realize and understand that you're going to sink to your lowest level of consistent training when that adrenal stress response kicks in and your hands feel like canoe paddles. And so my hope is that all of these millions of new gun owners, follow the path that I know that you guys propose or are proponents of, which is regular training, consistent training, visualization, mental training as well.
So people are going to watch this, and I have no doubt in my mind they're going to say, wow, this guy is unique. What would you want people to take away from this? If you had a chance to talk directly to them, what would you want them to take away from this, from your experiences with your father, your kids, the leadership, your ups and downs, what you're trying to accomplish with all of this? What would you say? Erase it all from your mind, but don't forget this thing. What would that be?
What the USCCA has turned into be. I'm an engineer. I check the numbers every morning. It's literally a family of now 687,000 people all across the country, from unbelievably diverse walks of life, and I say that because I've met them at some of our expos all across the country, and we've got everyone. I mean, every single age, every race, every religion, every sexual orientation that there is, and the thing that I marvel at is I am honored to shake their hands and maybe take pictures and listen to their stories. Or the introverts never want to talk, which I appreciate. You do what is show me their card, thumbs up. But the thing that the one common thread is even though the demographics are all different, the psychographic is all the same. And when I say that, I mean the beliefs and our principles. They're all the same, and that is that it's. I just met you guys. I barely know you, but I guarantee you that what I'm about to say, you're on the same page with me, and that is that you believe that it's your responsibility to be your family's first line of defense, to be your first line of defense, right? So it's responsibility, and then ultimately that translates all the way back to freedom.
It does. It absolutely does.
If it is to be.
Yeah,
it's up to me.
It's up to me.
Yeah. I love that, man. This has been
this is phenomenal.
This is a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Thank you, Tim.
Well, you guys, thank you for making the trip all the way out here to Wisconsin.
Yeah, we'll be back.
And I honor what you're doing. Don't ever underestimate the huge impacts that you're having.
Thank you. Thanks.
I appreciate that. All right, guys.
As crime continues to rise across the United States, Americans of all races, colors, and creeds will continue to purchase firearms, making USCCA's mission all the more important. USCCA is an organization focused on empowering its members through education and training, while also providing them with liability insurance for lawful self-defense scenarios. Under the leadership of Tim Schmidt, USCCA has singularly become the most important liability carry insurance option in the United States. And when you meet Tim and talk to the more than 400 staff at USCCA, it's not hard to see why. With their passion, commitment, and dedication to their customers, it's easy to see why USCCA has grown to become one of the most critically important firearms-related companies. It's everyday people working hard to educate and protect. And it's the core of that mission that makes USCCA.
Insurance has been purchased by the USCCA and is one of the benefits of membership in the USCCA. Coverage and benefits are subject to the terms, conditions, and exclusions of the insurance policy issued to the USCCA. Every USCCA member is an additional insured on that policy. Information provided herein is for informational purposes and is not intended to be a representation of coverage that may exist in any particular situation. USCCA membership is not available to residents of New Jersey, New York, or Washington State. Contact Delta Defense's customer engagement team at 1-800-674-9779 with any questions. Delta Defense LLC provides sales, marketing, operations, and administrative support services to the USCCA and is a licensed insurance agency in all 50 states and the District of Columbia, with its principal office in West Bend, Wisconsin. Delta Defense LLC does business as Delta Defense Insurance Services in California. California license number 0M34093.